So this is the very first step. I'm just taking my dark blue and making a circle in the top right hand corner. You can maybe put it a little lower than mine, but this is about where you're wanting the circle to be. And so after this, we're gonna take our dark blue again and make a line about halfway in our painting. So about right here. And again, both of these will be dark blue. So we have first a circle, and second we have a horizontal line here. And so what we're going to do is again take our dark blue, and we're gonna start creating this kind of background sky that we have. So to do this, you're again gonna take your dark blue and you're just going to make some curved brush strokes that are going to start from the outside of your circle, and they're going to go towards the inside of your circle. And so I'm starting on the outside with the pure dark blue, and I'm being sure to fill in these corners as I'm doing it, but the brush stroke should really be curved as you're going inward. And as we're going in, we're just going to take a bit of white on our paintbrush. So I'm going to dip my paintbrush in my white. I'm going to start adding some white as we go inward. So as you can see, the brush strokes here are getting a bit lighter as we're going in. So I'm gonna start with my dark blue and add a little bit more white as I'm coming in to the circle. And what this will eventually do is make it look like the moon, or I guess the sun. Actually, we're gonna make it the moon in this one, but you're gonna make the moon have kind of a aura around it. And as you're doing this, as you're putting more white on your brush, you'll begin to see that kind of happening on your canvas. So as you can see, I'm just adding more and more white as we go in towards the moon. And I'm not blending the colors too terribly much. So as you can see, you can see the brush strokes that I'm using, which is really okay because this painting is going to have an impressionistic feel, which means you can see all those brush strokes. So it's totally okay if you have those in there. Okay, so all I'm doing is continuing to make some blue and some white brush strokes, and the object is to make it as light as possible around the moon and make it just gradually darker as we get towards the outside. So you'll start to see this nighttime sky kind of created. And I'm being careful to make sure that I'm staying above my center line, because if I go too far down, then it might make a blue tone for the rest of the painting, which I'm trying to avoid. So just kind of remember that as you are continuing. So I'm just continuing with my brush strokes. And I am just filling in the corner here. And after this, what I'm going to do is actually overlap the white with that original blue circle. So what I don't want is to see that dark blue circle around the moon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some white on my paintbrush, and I'm just going to go over top of that line that I have. I just want to blend it in a little bit. And later on in this painting, we're actually going to go over the moon again. So if it's not the correct shape that you want, if it's maybe too small or too big, then you can actually fix that later on. But what I'm going to do is just get rid of this kind of dark blue line that we have. I don't like having the shapes outlined like that, so I'm just going to kind of blend it in, and I'm really just using white for this. I'm just going over that blue line with the white paint. Okay. So I'm just continuing over this blue line, making that blue line disappear, essentially. And with this, as I said, you'll start to see kind of that lighting coming from the moon and going into that blue, which is definitely the goal. And so with this, we've pretty much created the full sky. What I'm gonna do, so this next step, I'm just going to add a little bit more white brush strokes in the middle of my sky. So I'm gonna make these brush strokes a little bit more visible. And what this is gonna do is make the painting look even more impressionistic. So we're just gonna add some more brush strokes throughout the painting. And so as you can see, the first brush strokes that I did, they were a little bit blended in. But what I'm doing is just adding a little bit more throughout to really kind of give some texture to this sky. So I'm just adding a bit more. I might even add a little bit more of the dark blue. Just to create, as I said, a little bit more texture in this sky. So I'm just going to add a little bit more blue, and then we'll get started with the next part of the background, which is going to be actually this green, green grass that we have. Okay, so I'll just do a few more brush strokes, and really this is up to you guys. You can make the sky kind of how you want it. If you want it to be a little bit more blended, that's okay. If you want it to really have some nice brush strokes in there, you can do that as well. It's really, that's the beauty about making paintings like this, is that you really get to make it unique to what you want, which is most of the fun of it. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more in here, get it right where I want it. And then we should be good to go. And as I said, if that moon is a little bit too small or too big, we're gonna go over it later in this class. So you can actually modify the shape a little bit. So don't feel like it's too permanent. You can always go over the paint later. Okay, so now that I have my sky just about where I want it, which is really pretty, looks like a very moonlit sky, I'm going to get started with the bottom half of our painting, which is going to start with some green. So for those of you that have a green color paint pre-made, go ahead and use that. I think more power to you. I do not have any pre-made green, so I'm gonna go ahead and mix mine. And all you do to mix your color green is just add yellow to blue. So I'm going to do that about in equal proportions. You want to make sure that you don't have too light of a green or too dark of a green. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix my yellow and blue together. And again, I'm gonna use the same brush that I just did, so that same thick square brush. And I'm just gonna create this green to be, it's almost a tree green, if you can see it here. If you're using a pre-made green, you might wanna add a little bit of yellow into it or a little bit of white to kind of dull it down a little bit. But what I'm gonna do is just put more of my dark blue into my mixture. And that will really create that nice tree green. Okay. Okay, everybody, so I have my green made. And for those of you that are mixing, once again, it's just blue and yellow together. So that's all you need to do. Just equal proportions with blue and yellow. And for those of you that are using pre-made green, then maybe add a little bit of yellow into it. If you want to dull it down, maybe a little bit of white. That will make it a little more dull, which for this painting is actually good with the green. Okay. So the next step, we're actually going to create two shapes here. So follow this as I'm doing it. I'll hold it up so you guys can see this shape really clearly. So the first one, it's going to be on the right side of your painting, and you're just going to create one hump and then a curved line down to the corner. So it'll go a little bit over that blue that you have. And that makes it look like the green hill is coming over the sky a little bit. It gives the ground a little bit of texture, which is good. So we're just going to create that first hump and then a line coming down to the corner. And what we're gonna do is just fill this shape in with your green. And what I'm gonna do is use some pretty small horizontal brush strokes for this. And the reason is I just want to create some texture in the grass, just like I've done for the sky up here. So I'm creating some brush strokes, kind of, they're a bit short and thick actually, but I'm just mimicking what I've done here in the sky so that we have a common brush stroke throughout the whole background. So I'm just adding more and more green to fill in this shape that we have. And this is going to be basically half of our scenery here. So I'm just adding more and more of my green, making sure my brush strokes are matching the brush strokes I used up top. As you can see, I've created a little bit of texture in here. And we will go over this a little bit again too. So don't worry if you want to make more brush strokes. You can pretty much just fill it in with horizontal brush strokes and you're good. So this is what we have. We have the sky, we have the brush strokes making it darker towards the edges, and we have this first part of green grass. And so after this part's done, we're going to do something similar on the other side, but it's going to be just a little bit different to make sure the shapes aren't identical. So this one, I'm going to do two humps on that horizon line. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and this is, I'm making sure there's a little space of white in between the green. So I don't want to cover that horizon line entirely. I want to make sure I leave a little bit open because we're going to put that nice kind of textured brick road in there. So you can leave that little space empty and do your two humps. And then this line coming down, we're going to make it curved, almost like a backwards S. So I'm going to curve, curve, and come down this way. So as you can see, that this line is pretty curved. I have it kind of like a backwards S here. So you want to follow that shape. And what that does is it gives a nice outline for this road that we are going to create here. So we have the two humps in our backwards S for that second half of the grass here. And then we're just going to do the same thing we did on the other side, just fill the shape in. And once again, I'm using these horizontal kind of short brush strokes. And what this does is just creates a bit more texture in there, as you can see. Okay. So as you can see, we have our grass pretty much completed. I might go over it a little bit more right over the sky so I don't see that blue coming down behind the grass. Okay. Okay, so we have a pretty good background right now. We have the sky looking pretty good. We have the grass with those similar brush strokes. What we're gonna do is now add that road in between. So we have a nice outline now for this road. And what we're going to do is just fill in this section with brown. So if you have a brown already made, once again, fantastic, you'll want to use that. If you don't have any brown, then you'll have to mix one together. It's very, very easy to mix a brown together. All you do is put your three colors, red, yellow, and blue together. And what that does is it technically creates a burnt umber for you. But this absolutely mimics brown. So it looks like an orangey brown, but that is absolutely perfect for the road. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix together a brown. And I'll show you the original painting so you know the color we're looking for. So it's going to be this kind of dark brown color that we're using. And so once again, if you have a brown already made, usually it's a burnt umber color. So you can go ahead and do that. And what I'm gonna do is mix together a brown. Again, you'll wanna mix red, yellow, and blue together. And I usually do quite a lot of yellow in there, and what that does is turns the color a bit more orange. So that's really what we're looking for. When you want to make black, you'll then add even more blue into that color. So we're gonna go ahead and get this brown color made. And what we're gonna do is just put that color in between the two areas of grass that we've created. So I'll go ahead and mix this color together. And what I would recommend is maybe using a medium-sized brush for this next part. So maybe take it down from the full, thick brush that we were using before. Maybe use a medium square brush. I think that's really what I would recommend for this part. So you'll want to, as I said, mix together your brown, just yellow, red, maybe add a lot of yellow, a lot of red in there, and a bit of blue as well. And what that does is it creates your burnt umber color. Okay. Okay, so now that we have our burnt umber and we're using our medium-sized brush, what we're gonna do is paint this road line that we've created. So we'll just want to fill in the best that we can all of this white space. It's really the only white that we have left other than the moon. So we'll just want to fill this in with brown.
Just lost you.
I know sometimes the connection comes in and out, so I think...
I'm seeing somebody else.
Oh, I see. Yeah, sometimes you have to pin my screen, which if you want to do that, all you have to do is put it into speaker view and then double click on the Painting with Mom screen. And
on the iPhone, you can do that?
I think on the iPhone you can, let me think.
Oh, I've got you back.
Oh, good, good. Okay, I'll keep talking as well, so that way I stay in front of you guys. I know it's hard sometimes using technology to do this.
The double tapping usually works on the iPhone.
There, okay, good. I've never tried it on the iPhone, so I'm not sure. But if the double tapping usually works, then by all means give that one a shot. And thank you guys for helping out so much. I know a lot of the times we have peer helping, which is great. So thank you guys for that. Okay, so we're just gonna continue to fill in our road, and I am just filling it in with the plain brown that I created. So it's that color that I created by mixing red, yellow, and blue together. I'm just gonna fill it in the best that I can. If you want to use horizontal brush strokes for this, that's great. But brown is such a dark color that I'm just going to fill it in. And we will be going over this as well to get a bit more texture in all of the grass and all of the road. So don't worry if it's not absolutely perfect. So we're just filling in still, and I'm being careful on these edges. I just want to make sure my curves are nice and pretty. I want to make sure they're not too zigzaggy. I want to make sure they're really curved like that. And what those curves do is makes it look a little bit more like some of these impressionistic paintings. They use big curved brush strokes. They kind of have these nice shapes created, which is what we've done. Okay, so I'm almost done here with my brown brick road. And almost done. And as I said, if you want to do some horizontal brush strokes as you're going through this, that will actually make the texture look really good with the other brush strokes we've used. But if not, it's totally okay. We're actually gonna go over it in a second anyway. So you won't need to worry too much about the texture.
Do you mind terribly waiting about a minute after the road for us to catch up?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, sometimes I do go a little bit too fast. So that is the beauty of being able to talk to me. Yes, I can wait a moment for you. And I will hold it up so you can see as well what we've done so far. So again, we've done the, let's see if I can hold this here. We've done this nice sky with quite a lot of brush strokes in there. As you can see, mine is really a lot of brush strokes. You don't have to have nearly this many. But what we've done is basically taken the dark part of the sky and made it a bit lighter as we're going towards the moon. And what we'll be doing later is actually going over the moon again. So don't worry if it's a weird shape. Mine looks very strange because I've blurred the lines, but we'll go over it later, so don't worry about it. And next we did the grass, which is very simple. We just did really two large, weird, funky shapes. And we filled it in with horizontal brush strokes. And so these brush strokes make the grass look a little bit textured, but as I said, later we're gonna go over it so it will look even more textured. So don't worry if it's not how you want it. We can always change it later, which we will be doing. And the road is simply just this burnt umber color. As I said, if you have a brown that you've already purchased and it's pre-made, I think by all means you'll want to use that. If you haven't, you can make this color very easily just by mixing your red, your yellow, and your blue together. And it makes that nice burnt umber color. Okay. So I'll hold this up just for a moment so that those of you that are a little bit behind, you can catch up. As I said, I know sometimes I go a little too fast, so just ding me, just unmute your screen, let me know, and I can slow it down for you guys.
Your burnt umber looks almost black. Do you have black in there?
I actually don't, and I don't know, it might be the lighting. I'm trying to show you guys that it's actually a brown.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it might be the lighting in here, but maybe you can see a bit better if I hold it this way, that it actually is a brown. So hopefully you guys use the brown and not that dark color that it looks like on this screen. Let's see. As we're waiting here, I'm just gonna add a little bit more of blue into my sky, just because I'm seeing that it might need a little bit here. So I'll just wait maybe a few more minutes and we'll continue on. Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue on. The next step that we're going to do is actually just going to be adding some texture into our road, into our grass as well. So what we're going to do is use actually a lot of yellow in this part. So if you want to go ahead and put some yellow on your palette, that will be the next color that we're going to use. And I'm probably going to do another medium brush. So the last brush that I used was this nice medium square top. So I'll probably use something similar to that. And as I said, we're gonna use our yellow. I have this nice kind of bright yellow. If you don't have something like this, maybe add some white into your darker yellow if you have something more orange. But we're gonna use yellow both for the road and for the grass. So this will be, you'll need quite a lot of that color if you want to.
Is that Naples yellow?
It is, it's actually a lemon yellow. So
Lemon.
it's
Okay.
not, yeah. It's not quite the Naples, but if you want to add a little bit of white into it, it should be about the same thing.
I've got cadmium yellow.
That's a perfect one, actually. If it's a medium or a light cadmium, then yeah, that'll work perfect. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. So with the yellow, as I said, I'm just going to use probably a medium-sized brush. And what we're going to do is make some just small horizontal brush strokes. So I'll show you what I'm going to do here. I'm just cleaning off my brush, making sure all of that brown is off of it. Okay. So with the yellow, I'm going to start on the road, and what I'm going to do is just make some horizontal brush strokes here, and they kind of blend in, but you're just going to do them in the middle of the road, and what that does is create some lighting. So as you can see, I'm just putting some brush strokes horizontally in the middle of the road. And so I'm going to continue doing this all the way up my road here. And as I said, what that does is really create some lighting in your painting. And it's okay, see how my brush strokes are kind of blending in, you can almost barely see them. That is totally okay, you'll just keep going over that area with yellow. And that will, as I said, create some nice lighting in your painting. So I'm just gonna keep going over it until you can really visibly see that yellow. And it's okay if it takes you kind of a minute to get that yellow color on there. But what I want to do is create some nice texture on this brick road, and it's kind of like turning into a yellow brick road, which is cool. Okay, so we're just keeping these horizontal brush strokes going. And I'm being sure not to go totally across to the edges of this road. So I'm leaving that kind of dark brown on the edge. And I'm just doing my brush strokes, maybe a little brush stroke away from that edge. And I'm keeping them towards the middle. So as you can see, it's created this nice texture. And what we're gonna do is actually something similar to the grass. So I'm gonna take more of my yellow. I'm just rinsing out my brush right now. And I'm gonna start going over the green with the same kind of idea, except what I'll do is I'll keep them a little bit thicker. So I'll show you what this looks like, just one moment here. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just start doing some nice kind of textured brush strokes throughout the grass.
With the yellow?
With the yellow, yes, correct. And so we're doing this just to get a little bit of texture, a little bit of lighting as well. And so I'm just keeping these brush strokes a little bit thick. And I'm making sure they're not totally yellow. I'm making sure you can see that green behind there too. So they're naturally kind of blending in, as you can see. I'm doing this on both sides just to get some nice lighting in here. As you can see, I have this nice texture now to my grass, and I'm going to add even more to my brick road in just one moment here. So this is what I've done. I'll give you guys a moment to kind of get this where you want it. I know sometimes it takes a bit of blending the colors together, a bit of kind of experimenting with that yellow over top of that green and that brown to make sure it's right where you want it. So this is all we have for now. And as I said, I'll give you a second to continue this and just kind of create that lighting where you want it. It doesn't have to be really perfect. Mine is kind of actually sporadic as to where those yellow brush strokes are, but it's up to you. It's up to what you want to kind of create. So as I said, I'll give you a little bit of time with this one. I know it takes a moment to get it right where you want it. And if you want to get ready for the next part, what we're going to do is use some plain white. So if you want to get that color out, We'll use just a little bit of white for the next part. So for the next part, we're pretty much going to do the same thing that we just did on the road, but we're going to use some white. So we're going to create a little bit more lighting on our road by creating some nice, once again, horizontal brush strokes with our white. So I'm going to take the white and it's going to blend in a little bit, which is okay. One moment here, I'm just gonna try to mute some screens here. Okay. So as I said, we're gonna take the white and we're just gonna make these horizontal brush strokes, even more of them. But as I said, this time we're using the white, so it'll create a little more lighting, which is good. So I'm just doing even more brush strokes. And I'm just doing the same thing that I did before. I am keeping the brush strokes away from the edges, and I'm blending them in a bit with the yellow and the brown. So what this does is it just makes one more layer of lighting, one more layer of texture. And if your yellow is completely disappearing, which mine is, you might want to add a little bit more yellow on top of that as well. And once again, we're just creating some nice lighting. And if you want, as I said, you can add more yellow to it if you feel the need.
Since I can't see you, where are you doing the white?
Oh gosh, I'm doing the white right on top of the yellow on the road. So it'll be on the brown road, and I'm just doing some white horizontal brush strokes on the road. And really, that just kind of creates a little more texture, a little more lighting on our road. And so towards the bottom, your brush strokes should be kind of long. And then as they go closer towards the top, they're going to start getting shorter and shorter. And so you can blend this a little bit. What I like to do is leave the brush strokes visible, just to create some texture in paintings like this. But if you want them to be more blended, it's really up to you guys what you want to do with it. And so the last steps that we did for anybody catching up, we've done the grass, and what we did is we made some highlights on it to just give it some lighting, some texture, and we did that with yellow. And then on this dark brown road, we've given it a little bit of lighting, a little bit of texture by using some white and some yellow in there as well. And as I said, if your yellow completely disappears as you put that white on it, I'm just gonna add a little bit more yellow in there just so we get the color still. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll get started with the next step, which is creating a whole lot of trees, a lot of lamps. These are going to be silhouettes, so we're going to use black for the next part. So if you want to get your black out, you can go ahead and do that. And if you don't have any black, then what you'll want to do is make your own. And it's the exact same process to make the black as we did the brown. So you'll basically mix together your red, your yellow, and your blue, so your primary colors, and you'll add a lot of blue into it, and that will create something actually similar to black. So that is always an option if you don't have a black colored paint for this one. Okay, so I'll give you guys just 1 second to catch up before we do our trees and our lamps, which is really going to be the foreground of our painting. So we've completed the background other than the moon, which we'll go over later. And now we are about to do the foreground, which is, I'll show you the original painting here. So this is the one that I did previously. And so we have the brown, we have the green, we have the blue, and now we are just going to do these trees and lamp posts for the next part. So I'll show you guys how we're going to do this. And it starts out with really an upside down T shape. So I'll show you guys what we're going to do. So probably for this one, I'm again going to use a medium brush. And we're gonna start creating the trees for the first step. So get out your black paint and we'll start making these trees.
Thank you. New car. I gotta take it in. Transmission, something. Yeah. So I'm gonna take it Monday. Yeah. Thank you, Jesus.
Okay. So we'll get started. What we're gonna do with the black is, as I said, we're gonna start with the trees. So the first tree that we're gonna do is down towards the bottom corner of your painting, about right here. As I said, we're gonna start with a upside down T. And mine might be a little bit big. If you wanna make it a little smaller than that, that's okay. And this T is actually going to go all the way up to the top of your painting. So about like this. And you can make it a little bit curved if you want to. What I'll do is kind of make a base down here. And I'll make it a little bit curved. A little bit shaky. Because this is kind of looks very fall-like. So the trees can be a little bit spooky looking if you're kind of wanting to make it look a little bit like Halloween. So this is our first one. As I said, I'm making the stump of it a little bit thicker. And then the next one we do is going to be just a little bit lower than the first one. So the first one's about, I'd say, 2 or 3 inches above the bottom of the painting. The next one we're gonna do is right towards the bottom. So it's lower and on the opposite side. And again, it's the T shape. This one's gonna go about to here. So a little bit under where that moon is. So I'm just gonna make my T. And as I said, this can really, it doesn't have to be too straight at all. It can be pretty curved because it's a tree and trees aren't really totally straight. So curve it if you want to. You can keep it a little bit straight, but mine, as you can see, I'm making sure it's got some ridges in there so it looks a little bit natural. So we now have 2 trees. And so what you'll want to do is make this bottom one actually a little bit thicker than this one. So I'm going to go ahead and modify these shapes a little bit, because you want the one towards the bottom to be big, and you want this one that's a little bit higher to be just a little bit smaller. And the reason is, when you have objects closer to you, they appear to be bigger. So you want to make sure that we have our depth correct. So I'm just going to make this tree a little bit smaller, and I'll make the other one a little bit bigger. And that is the good thing about painting. If you make a mistake, you can always go over the paint, which I really, it helps me a lot. Okay. So as I said, I'm gonna make this bottom tree a little bit thicker, just because it is technically in front of the other one. So as you can see, I've made this one a little bit skinnier and this one a little bit thicker. And so once again, this T over here, this tree on the right-hand side, this one goes all the way up to the top. And the second one we made is going to stop about an inch below your moon. And then we're gonna do one more tree, and this one's going to be a lot smaller. And this one is going to be, again, on the right-hand side. And we are going to do a smaller T about right here. So it's further away, it's higher than the other ones, and it's right off of that road. So we'll create this T, and this one, it's not gonna be tall at all. It's maybe gonna go a little bit higher than the second T that we made. So about right here. And then as you can see, what I'm doing after I make my T's is I kind of make a triangle figure at the bottom of my stump. And what that does is it creates a grounding for the tree, which makes it look just a little bit more natural.
Founded on the principles of person-centered care, Art to Wellness is designed by our ageing specialists to meet the home care needs of your loved ones through immersive and holistic programs. The Art to Wellness approach to successful ageing is made available to our community through our Painting with Mom complimentary classes. This is our way of bringing families and community together through the arts while promoting personal self-well-being for all.
So once you have the straight lines going up, we're gonna start making some branches. So again, using your medium brush, you can use maybe the corner of it for these branches. And really what they're going to do, you're just gonna make some curved lines. So it's going to curve towards the edge of your painting. So you're gonna curve one, curve maybe a few. So it's really kind of like you're making leaves here almost, but you're just making these kind of lines curving away from your tree. And then you can have them, you know, branch off a little bit. So maybe you'll have this one create two, and maybe you'll make one to the right here, probably do one big one. So this is kind of the outline of the branches of your tree. Now I'll continue to do them on all of my trees, so I'll just keep making these lines curving away from the tree. And they can branch off, as I said, they can make little branches off of them. So that's about all I'm gonna do for these two. I'm just gonna make about maybe 5 branches for each. And as I said, they're just curved lines, and you can make them a bit skinnier as you go. If you want to use a smaller brush for these little tiny ones, that's okay. And then I'm just gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna make some curved lines coming off. And for this tree, the one tree on this side, I'm gonna make one big branch coming around this moon over here. So this will help kind of create a frame around the moon. So I'll continue, I'll maybe make a few more of these branches here, coming off. And so this is all I am going to do for the branches. So this is a good basis for our tree. So what I have is basically lots of curved lines going always away from the center of the tree. And most of them are pretty thick. Most of them don't get too terribly skinny, except for this back tree here. I've got some really skinny lines over there. So I'll hold this up for you guys to really kind of copy these shapes. So really all I've done is just created about 4 or 5 branches coming off of each tree. And they start maybe about halfway up, all of them, but they really just kind of curve out from the tree. And you can really play around with these. What I like to do is make them a little bit of the branches, but I find that if I just kind of use a light brush stroke, then you can still create that tapering down of the thickness. So I'll hold this up for you guys. And once you're done with this, we're actually going to create our lamp post as well. So we're going to do a few more black silhouetted objects. So once you've created your trees, you're going to go ahead and make some lamp posts. So this is again just going to be 2 T's that you're making, 2 upside down T's, I guess. And so the first one is going to be about here. And you just again make a T coming up, and it's going to stop about where that grass ends as well. So about right here, and it's going to be a little bit smaller. So if you want to use a smaller brush for this part, then you can go ahead and do that. And the next T we're gonna do is, I'd say, pretty close to this first tree that we did. It's going to be about here. So these are going to be our 2 lampposts. So I'll hold this up for you guys just so you guys can replicate the shapes. So we have our 3 trees, they're nice and thick. And then we have our 2 pretty skinny lampposts. So again, those are going to be little T's. And if you want to take the next step on these, I'm just going to create maybe an upside down U at the base of them. So I've made these upside down U's at the base of my lamppost. And then I'll just fill them in. So these are going to be the bases of my lampposts. So I'll give you a little bit of time. The next step, we're gonna take a break from using the black. You'll still need the black in a moment, so make sure you hold on to that on your palette. But the next step, we're actually going to start using some white and some yellow mixed together. So if you wanna put those two colors on your palette, we're going to use a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow. We are going to do basically the lighting from the lamps, and we're also gonna start doing the moon as well. So I'll give you guys a break from using this black, and we'll start adding a little bit of lighting into our painting. But I'll give you guys just one moment to catch up here. If there's anything you want to fix on your painting, this is probably a good time. I'll give you just a second. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do to make this lighting is we're gonna start with some yellow. And I'm just cleaning off my brush. I'm gonna use a smaller brush for this next part. So I'm cleaning it off from the black. Black is usually really heavy on the brushes, so you have to kind of rinse it out really well. And I'm just gonna wipe it on my paper towel to clean that brush completely off. So we're gonna start with some yellow. And as I said, we're going to be using white as well. So make sure you have both of those out. And so with your yellow, you're really going to make two kind of circles. I'll show you what this looks like. So at the top of your two lamp posts, you're going to make about, I'd say, a fingertip size of a yellow dot. So about like this. And I'll do the same thing on the other lamppost. I'll make about a fingertip size dot. And this part is totally optional. This is a little bit messy, but what you can do is take your actual fingertip and blur in that yellow dot. So it makes it a little bit translucent, like that. And so the next thing you'll do is you'll use a little bit of white and you're going to put a few more dots in the center of your yellow dot. So I'll take my white and I'll just make a little dot in the center of each. And again, if you want to blur this with your fingertip, it makes it a little bit translucent or transparent. And so we have our yellow underneath and our white on top. And then I'm just gonna do one more white dot right in the center, like that. So this is what we have. We have our lamp lighting. So after this, what we're gonna do is make a little bit more white brush strokes around the light of the lamp. So once you have your little lights here with the yellow, the white, and the white dot in the center, we're gonna take our white and make 2 white circles around our lamp. And so what this does is creates a little bit of lighting around them. And so just use your small brush for this part and you'll create 2 circles around the lamps. And they can go over top of the trees, they can go pretty much over top of everything. And so again, what we've done the yellow as our base for our lights. Then we've put some white in the center of both of them. So I'll try to zoom this in as much as I can. And then we've done the 2 white circles around those lanterns. So this creates, just as I said, a bit of lighting around them. It really makes the painting pop too, which is great. And so once you're done with this, I'll hold this up so you guys can catch up, but once you're done with this, we're going to create a little bit of definition in our moon. I'll show you how to do this part as well. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started on the moon. We're just going to use some yellow and maybe a little bit of yellow orange. If you don't have any yellow orange, you can add a little bit of red to your yellow when we get to that part. But we're going to start off with just some plain yellow. And this part will really help you shape your moon if you want to make it a little bit bigger, if you want to add some more color into the moon. It's really up to you. What we're gonna start with is making kind of a thick yellow line around the white portion of the moon. So if you wanna make your moon a little bit bigger, what I recommend doing is going over top of the blue that you've already made. And so we're just gonna make kind of a yellow circle around where that white part of the moon is. Makes it a little bit warmer, a little bit spookier too, which is cool. But so you're gonna start with just this yellow kind of ring around the moon. And it'll make your moon look a little bit more colorful. And so the next part is going to require a little bit of that yellow orange. So if you want to add a teeny tiny bit of red, it's going to take like a dot of red. Put that into your yellow and it'll create a yellow orange color. And we'll get started with this next step. So as I said, it's just a tiny dot of red into your yellow. And what we're gonna do, I'll try to hold this as close as I can to you guys. We're just going to make some small brush strokes about in the center of our moon. I'm gonna leave some white open in my moon because I don't want it to be totally covered in yellow, totally covered in orange. But I'm just gonna make some brush strokes kind of towards the bottom of my moon. And really what this does is it just makes those craters that you see when you look in a telescope at the moon. I'm trying to show a little bit of shading on it. And probably what I'll do is I'll go over it a little bit with white. To make it look like it's blending in there a little bit. As I said, I'm making sure to leave a decent portion of white on my moon. So I'll maybe do a little bit more down here. And it really makes it look like a painting that is done with small brush strokes and a lot of shading. In reality, it's just a few brush strokes. So this little detail does a whole lot for the painting. And as I said, if you want to make your moon a little bit bigger, you'll just add more yellow towards the outside of your moon. This will help you kind of shape your moon to whatever size you want it to be. But if you're happy with it, just, yeah, put that ring around it and then maybe use a little bit of that yellow orange in the center. And after you're done with this part, we are going to go back to using our black. So back when I said make sure you keep your black on your palette, this is the part we're going to use it for. So I'll hold this up so you guys can follow along. As I said, whenever I'm holding the painting up, this is a good time for you guys to fix any mistakes you have, go over anything you want to shapen up a little bit. I'll hold this to give you guys a bit of a moment to either catch up or modify your painting here. Okay. Okay, you guys. So we're gonna go ahead and do the remainder of the black paint part. So I'm gonna use my smallest brush that I have for this next part. And I'm going to dip my paintbrush in black. And what I'm gonna do is make the tops of my lantern. So I think it's best to do the lantern lighting before you put the basically cap on that lantern, so it looks like the lighting is beneath the cap. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that part for you guys. And it's really just creating two kind of triangular shapes. So what I'm gonna do is make kind of a curved triangle. I'm gonna have a top, and I'll try to hold this so as close to you guys as I can. So I'll do a top, which is just a straight line, and then I'm gonna make curved bottom to it. So it looks a little bit like that. So I'll do it one more time so you guys can see that in action. So it'll be a top to the light, and then 2 curved triangular bottoms. So you're basically making 2 triangles, or I guess upside down triangles, but you'll make 2 triangles over your light. And so at this point you can kind of see things coming together. You have the moon looking really good, you have the sky looking good, the grass looking good. Really we're just missing some shadows throughout and the beautiful colors of the leaves, which is the best part. It really ties the whole painting together. So even if you're looking at your painting right now thinking, oh no, it doesn't look too great, the leaves on the trees are going to pull everything together and it'll make everything look way better. But we have one last step for the black. We're just going to create another little triangle and a dot on top of our lantern. So it's a little, almost like a little hat to that lamppost you already made, and a little dot on top. So it's going to be another flat triangle and a little dot on top. So that makes the lantern look a little bit more realistic now that you have its little topper on it. And so what we'll do next is some shading, just some shadows for these trees, for the lampposts. We're gonna make everything a little bit more shaded. So I'll give you guys a second to catch up on this part and then we'll go ahead and get started. We're just gonna use some gray, which is just some black, and a little bit of white mixed together. But as I said, I'll give you guys a little bit of time to catch up and then we'll get started. So I'll go ahead and start mixing together my black and my white. Just gonna create, it's really, we're looking for a dark gray. So it's just a little bit of white into my black. And I'll probably use my small brush again. So we're just gonna do some shadows. As I said, I'll give you guys 1 second to catch up and then we'll mix together our black and our white to create a little bit of dark gray. It's almost gonna be, it's almost a medium gray, but I'm adding a bit more black into it, so it's pretty dark here. Okay, so I'll mix together these colors. Make sure I have my dark gray ready. Okay. So for the shadows, pretty much all we're gonna do is make some small, short horizontal lines beneath the trees and beneath the lanterns. So at the stumps, I'm gonna make some horizontal lines coming all the way down to the bottom of the painting, like this. And so that's gonna create a nice shadow for us. And what you'll want to do is try to get these brush strokes a little bit smaller as you get to the bottom of the page. So I'll show you again as I'm doing it from a lantern. So I'll start with pretty short ones, but I'll end them getting smaller and smaller, almost to dots as we're going down. So we start with these bigger brush strokes and we end, as we're going down further, with some really small ones. So as I said, they almost get to be like dots. And this creates your nice little shadow coming down from the trees and from the lanterns. I'll do one more here for that back tree. I'm just gonna go down like this. And they don't have to be too terribly straight. They can be pretty crooked, but it's okay. And so we'll make these horizontal lines coming down. And as I said, I'm using kind of a dark gray, so it's not actually black. It's hard to see on the camera, but it's actually a little bit more like a gray. And if it's too light for you, what you can do is add a little bit of black in there as well. That'll help make your shadow a little bit more dense. So as I said, they're just horizontal lines coming down from the lampposts and from the trees. And that is the last that you will use any black whatsoever. So you can put your black away. The only part we have left is the leaves from the trees. And as I said, this is not only the most fun part, but also the part that makes your whole painting tie together. It makes your painting look 10 times better than what it does now. So even mine, I'm kind of thinking that it doesn't look too great right now, but it will look so much better once we add some really vibrant colors. So I'll give you guys a second to put your black away, and maybe what you guys should do right now is get a whole new palette if you are able to, and just put some red, some yellow, and some white on that palette. And that'll help you get started with what we're gonna do with the leaves all over the painting. So we're gonna do yellow, red, and white. And what we'll do as we're kind of mixing those colors together is get different shades of red, different oranges, yellows, and pinks. I think is gonna be really pretty for this painting too. So I'll hold this up for you guys if you are still catching up, if you're still doing your lamp posts, if you're still doing your shadows. I'll hold this up for you guys. And I'll kind of just go through what we did in the past, maybe 5 or so steps. So what we recently have done is the lighting of the lamps. So that's really just yellow with some white in the center of it. And then we created these white circles around the lamp. And next what we did is we did the moon. So it's really just a yellow circle around the white. And then we added some yellow-orange brush strokes along with some white brush strokes in the center of our moon. That really makes it look like it's detailed and shadowed, but really it's just a few brush strokes. And so after that, we finished up the lantern. We basically made one triangle facing downward and another facing upward. And then we put a dot on the top. And we did that for both of our lanterns or lamp posts. And then the last thing that we've done is just doing the shadows beneath the trees and the lamps. So I've just done horizontal brush strokes quickly, and I've made them a little bit smaller as we come down the painting. And that helps it make the lighting look like it's behind the painting. So I'll hold this for you just for a second. We're gonna get started on the next step, which is the leaves for the trees. And these are going to be all over the painting, and we're gonna use the colors red, yellow, and white. And if you have an orange, actually, that's great to use in there as well. But what I like to do is just mix the red and the yellow together, and that creates really beautiful shades of orange as it is. So you can try doing that if you want to do it that way. Otherwise, I recommend just putting your yellow, your red, maybe an orange, and a white on your palette. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started doing that. I'll put a new palette and I'll put a little bit of white. I'm using again my bright lemon yellow. And I'm using just a medium red as well, so it doesn't have to be too dark or too bright either. So I'm doing a lot of yellow, a lot of red, and a little bit of white in there too. And the good thing about using a little bit of white is you can create some beautiful shades of pink as you're creating your leaves. And I'll show you how to do all of this as we go through. Okay. And I'm probably going to use a nice medium brush for this part. So a square brush is perfect if you have a medium square brush. I have something similar. It's like a diagonal brush here, if you can see that. And this next part, I'll show you the final product so you can see kind of the idea of what we're doing here. And this is a part where you can really have fun with your painting, make it as vibrant, as pretty as you want it to be. 1 second here, I'm just gonna finish creating my palette. So as I said, mine is really just a bunch of red, a bunch of yellow, and a bunch of white. And that is all I am doing on my palette. And for the brush, I'm using my medium brush so I can get some really nice size of leaves. So once again, this is the final thing. And so, as you can tell, it looks totally different than what we have going on for our painting now. So what we're gonna do is make brush strokes all over our trees. So what I'm doing is staying away from the stump. This is just giving you some pointers as you're doing this. So I'm staying away from the middle stump of the tree, and I'm really just going over the branches of the trees. So I'm just kind of putting my colors wherever. And so we're gonna start with doing just over the branches. So what you can do, I'm gonna start with red. So just a plain red. And I'm just going to literally put splotches of paint all along where the branches seem to go to. So I'm starting with just red, and I'm just doing brush strokes kind of all over where the branches are, but I'm still leaving space. So I'm knowing in my head that I'm gonna do orange and yellow and pink. So I'm leaving some space, but you guys can really put these kind of all over the edges of your painting. So again, I'm doing these towards the branches or right on top of the branches. And I'm just using red for this first part. And they're just going everywhere. They're not kind of placed anywhere specific. I'm just really having fun with them, putting them all over my painting. And I'm doing a lot, but I'm not doing too terribly many. So the next thing I'm going to do is just add some yellow into my red to create an orange color. Maybe a kind of like a red orange. And I'll do the same thing. I'm just going to continue placing these brush strokes all over with now orange. And if you want them to be a little smaller, you can do that. If you want them to be a little bit bigger, you can use the flat brush side of your brush. But I'm really just placing them all over the place. So it's really a fun part of the painting. You can put them pretty much all over the sky. So I'm gonna do this, and then I'm going to do a little bit of a yellow orange. So now I'm using mostly yellow, maybe a little bit of red, and I'll go all over again. And as I said, I'm just putting them wherever I want to. So it's really fun. I'll do maybe a little bit of bright yellow, put that in there. Just a few here. I don't want it to be too terribly bright. But if you want it to be bright, yellow is actually a really beautiful one to use on this painting. I see some impressionistic paintings of trees and it's mostly all yellow and orange, so that's a really pretty technique as well to do. So I'm just putting these brush strokes all over the place. I'm really kind of just using my preference to put them where I want them. So if I want a little bit more maybe on the edges, I'll do that. But it really depends what you want. And the next part, what I am gonna do and what I think looks really pretty with this painting is I put a little bit of white on my red to create a pink color. And I go over with pink as well. So I'm just gonna use this kind of everywhere. And as I said, I'm varying the size of my brush stroke too. So some of them are smaller, some of them are much bigger. I'm just gonna keep doing this all over. I'm trying to stay away from the moon because we made that so pretty. I just want to make sure that we can see that. But otherwise, my branches aren't too beautiful, so I'm, covering those completely up. And so as you can see, I'm putting them all throughout the sky, and I'll keep doing it until I'm happy with it. Which is really, whenever you find a spot where you think it looks really good, then you can, be done if you don't want to add too much. I think with painting, there's a really important balance between too much and not enough. So if it's too much for you, you want to make sure that you stop whenever you're ready. So I think for me, this is good. I like how the trees are looking now. I might add a little bit more lower, just because I want to show that the leaves might be falling. And so they look like just big kind of dots. So this is what we have here. And so the next part, once you're done with this, and as I said, if you want to continue on, make even more leaves, by all means you can continue doing that. I'm just going to show you some more placements of where we want to create these leaves. So what I'm going to do is put them towards the bottom of the stumps and the lanterns. So I'll show you what this looks like, and again, I'm just going to use whatever color I have on my brush, which is kind of reddish. I'm going to make some little brush strokes towards the bottom of our trees. I'll do the same thing with the lanterns. Just create some kind of nice, I'm using a lot of red for these leaves here. And all I'm doing, as I said, is just speckling at the very bottom of our trees and our lamppost. This helps add a lot of color into what we're doing. And I'm really not being careful with the colors I'm using. So as you can see, these colors are really a lot of red, maybe some pink in there, a little bit of orange. My brush is pretty much so messy that it's gonna have a little bit of all colors no matter what. And it helps it, I don't know, it gives the painting a little bit more color, a little bit more shading if you're doing it that way. And then the last thing that I'm gonna do is actually just kind of put some horizontal brush strokes of color throughout maybe the road. I'm gonna add a little bit. This will show that there's leaves there in the road. And maybe a little bit as well on the grass. And so again, what this does is creates a lot of color into your painting. And I'm doing this mostly, honestly, with red. And I'm using kind of horizontal brush strokes to show that the grass is still horizontal. So I'll do a few more in the back of the road, like that. And then as you can see, my painting is pretty much covered with the red, orange, pink colors that I'm using. So it's pretty much done at this point. What I'll do is I'll give you guys maybe a few minutes to get all of your brush strokes down. I know that sometimes when you're painting these brush strokes, you want them to be really specific. So sometimes it takes a little longer. But if you're kind of doing it just randomly, throwing them on there, then it should be a pretty quick process actually. So I'll give you guys a little bit of time to figure this out and kind of make your painting come to life. As I said, the brush strokes on top of the trees and at the bottom, they are the most fun part and the most vibrant part, and it really makes the whole painting come together. So go ahead, take your time if you want to enjoy this process. It's, as I said, this is the fun part about painting to me. It's just splashing on the colors and not really thinking about where you're placing them. And so take your time on this. I'll hold it up. And whenever you're done, whenever you think your product is ready, you can turn your video on and show the rest of the group. And what I'll do, so I'll go out of my speaker view so I can see everybody. But yeah, as I said, this last part is really the most important part. It's really the time where you make your painting come to life. You add in so much colored effects that it makes the painting look really pretty, in my opinion. It makes it look kind of like an old-fashioned painting, so I really like it. Woo! Nice, you guys. Nice job. So I'm starting to see a few. Turn your video on. Yeah. No. Really? Oh, it's not showing mine. So I'm starting to see a few of the paintings pop up. Nice. Nice. They are looking so good, you guys.
They're so cute.
They're so good. Good job, everybody. Fantastic. Oh my gosh. No, they're looking so good. Yeah, I'm really happy with them. I always get so excited when you guys show these. They look so good. Oh, good. Awesome job, you guys. Awesome job. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna grab my phone so I can take a picture and keep holding your painting up. And what I'll do is I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, and we'll all say painting with mom. And I'll take a group photo, okay? 1, 2, 3. Painting with mom. Nice. Nice job, everybody. They look so good. Sorry, that noise gets a little annoying. Thank you guys so much. It was such a good class.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday. If that includes painting some more, awesome. If it includes going out on a walk, fantastic. Enjoy your Saturdays. It's a beautiful day, and I have such a good time doing this for you guys. So join me in 2 weekends. Next week it'll be Carla painting, so join her for that. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Oh, they were trying to get out. Oh my god, so funny.
Oh, they painted, huh?
Yeah, great. I'm trying to end the meeting here.
Oh god.